Welcome, everyone, to People, Their Passion and Purpose. Today's episode, we're going to be speaking with Shari Ann Fleming, and she is a girl I know with this incredible story. Uh, Shari Ann wanted something in her life, and she did not let anything stop her. So I need Shari Ann to tell us her story because you guys need to hear this story. It's incredible, extremely inspiring, and let's go. Let's get like right into it.
All right. Hi,
Tell us about
everybody.
yourself. Yeah.
Well, right now I'm going to be 60. I can't believe that in July.
Mm.
But I have twins. They're 20. They're going to be 21 in October. And I'm gay and I'm single. And so back 20 years ago, if you were gay or even if you were a single woman, it was almost impossible to have a child on your own. There weren't any clinics in the city that would treat a single woman that wanted to have IVF or artificial insemination. You had to be a straight couple, and that was the end of that. There were no choices available. And then eventually there was a doctor, Dr. Biljan. He left the Royal Victoria Hospital because he saw a need for single women or any type of woman to have a child without a man. And he opened up the Montreal Fertility Clinic right near the Vendôme Metro. And when he opened his doors, I'm not exaggerating, that there were lineups out the door to have an appointment. Any type of person, you were a woman, you were straight, you were gay, you were single, you were a couple, you wanted a baby, you headed out to Dr. Bill Jem, the Montreal Fertility Clinic. A friend of mine went ahead and had babies on her own. You know, she and her husband they tried IVF, they ended up divorcing, and she had a child on her own. And that was kind of my inspiration. And I remember speaking to a friend and said, I really want kids. And a friend of mine said her biggest regret in life was not having kids. And she encouraged me to go ahead and have them.
Mm.
So I said, okay, I'm just going to do it because if this other friend of mine could do it, I think I could do it by myself. And at first, I was scared to do it by myself. So I approached a friend of mine who was gay, a gay guy named Mitchell, because I knew he wanted kids. And I met with him in the village for coffee. And I remember saying, I want a baby. You know, do you want to have a baby with me? And we could co-parent. I thought it was simple, like, hey, let's co-parent. We'll have a kid together and we'll co-parent. And he said, sure, let's go do it. So we went to see Dr. Biljan and he ran a series of blood tests and they didn't come back perfect. There was something in our DNA that was a mismatch. And Dr. Biljan said, I'm sorry, I can't treat you because there's some chance that your child might have some issues that'll be wrong with your child based on your DNA. Very slight chance, but I can't treat you. So I said to Mitchell, we researched what this genetic thing could be, and we said, you know what, let's take a chance, but let's do it by ourselves. So we I ended up taking my temperature and finding out when I would ovulate. And I would call Mitchell and I'd say, okay, I'm ovulating on this day. And Mitchell would come over with his jar of sperm to my house. And, ding dong, here's your sperm. And I would have my syringe ready and he would leave and I would,
Yeah.
inseminate myself. Or a friend of mine did it also. So sometimes we do it at my house or sometimes we go to Mitchell's house and I'd lie on the floor with my legs up in the air, for
Right.
20 minutes. And it took, I think, 10 tries, 10 months. And then I got pregnant that way. We call it the turkey baster way. And I'll never forget, I told my parents, this is what I want. And my mother said to me, she goes, just sleep with him, just have sex with him. It'll be much easier to get pregnant. And I said, well, I don't think I want to sleep with him. And I don't think he wants to sleep with me. So obviously we didn't sleep together, but after 10 months, I was pregnant. And
Okay.
I was like thrilled and he was thrilled. And we wrote out some type of written agreement, we didn't see a lawyer or anything, but we wrote out an agreement. Anyhow, sadly, on the 12th week, I had a miscarriage. And, it's devastating to me. And I called him and I told him, and his reaction wasn't great. Like there wasn't much empathy. coming from him. And after a few weeks, I spoke to some friends and they suggested that I don't go ahead with Mitchell because down the road, let's say he is a partner, I have a partner, we share custody of this child, we're bound to each other for life, like a
Right.
divorced couple sharing a child.
Right.
So I took, yeah, exactly. So I took my friend's advice. I said, you know what? I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to do it by myself. And I went back
Mhm.
to see Dr. Biljan, and he said, well, you have to choose your sperm from a catalog now. So there was an online
Wow.
catalog, and I chose. I think he was a musician because I really was into the arts. So I chose. He was a Scientologist. That was what his profile said, and he was a musician and like theater, Broadway. And I said, oh, that sounds a bit like me. That's a match. And after 3 times, it didn't take. I didn't get pregnant. So then
Okay.
I said, I'm going to look again in the catalog and find a different sperm. So I found a nice Jewish lawyer.
This
And
is so
he,
weird.
I know, and he looked pretty interesting. And it showed that yes, he had positive results, and there were pregnancies, from him. It didn't say how many, and it gave a description of his grandmother and his grandfather from Belgium and the whole history. A nice Jewish lawyer. I said, okay, 6'10", 6'1", 180 pounds. I see a picture of him as a child. He looks pretty cute. I said, okay, let's go with this guy. And sure enough, I think it took, I don't know, 3, 4 times. But this time I was on medication to increase the follicles, to increase the eggs.
Mhm.
And there was always a chance of twins, but I didn't think anything of it. Like at all, it did it cross my mind that it would be twins. And I got pregnant, and I go to the office, and he gives me an ultrasound, and he says to me, Dr. Biljan, so how many do you want? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And he says, well, there's two growing. And I just was so overwhelmed. I started to cry because I'm single, and I'm like, what am I going to do with two?
Yeah,
You know, one on one, but now it's two against one. What can I?
exactly.
And I just like freaked out completely.
But okay, there's a lot to unpack here. So first of all, if it was 20 years ago and you're turning 60, happy big birthday to you.
Thank you.
You're
39.
you were 30, yeah, exactly. You were 39 years old. So
Yes.
that's number one. Number two, talk to me about a little bit to share with everybody about how badly you wanted to have kids. Like, where did that fit in your life? And, having gone through having to go see doctors myself and deciding not to have kids, I remember being in the hospital with women who really wanted to have kids. And that's when I knew that it wasn't for me, like, so I'm part of this story a little bit because I'm someone who has a partner and decided not to go through,
Right.
what I had to do. So, um, but for you to have kids on your own and not being able to because you were a single gay woman and so when did you know that you always wanted to have kids? What was that like for you?
It was never a thought that I wouldn't have. Like, I just assumed growing up, I'm going to be straight and married and have a husband and have kids. It was just a given. I never thought like anything else would be. That's what I assumed. And when my friend before me gave birth, I spent a lot of time with her and her kids, and I just had this overwhelming feeling like that's what I want. That's what I need. I never thought that I would be without kids. I just assumed that this is the way it was always going to be for me.
And when
And
you
so
and when
straight or gay didn't matter.
Right. Okay. So that's what I mean. So then like you became gay or you figured out you were gay or you came out as gay, you know, and so that thought never left your mind. You still thought I'm
Never.
gonna have kids. Yeah.
And even when I was 27 and with my partner, at that time we talked about having kids. But
Hmm.
at that time, there was no clinic. There was only one doctor that would see us, but he wouldn't treat us. He would just guide us,
Mm.
and he also sent us the catalog and says, choose your sperm, but you have to do everything on your own. And that's when I
Mm.
was 27. But my partner, he was just wishy-washy, and she couldn't commit at the time to go ahead and have
Mm.
a child. And then we broke up. And then I still had that need. And I just figured when Dr. Biljan opened his clinic, I said, okay, that's meant to be, you know.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And so when you so then I guess when you say that's what I needed in my life, like you just knew that you needed that. It was a strong feeling you
Destroy
had.
exactly, exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, I had a very close family. I'm very close with my brother, even though we fight. And you know, my friends were all straight. They were having kids. My best friend already had two kids, and growing up we said, oh, we're going to have kids together at the same time, but obviously it didn't happen. So three of my closest friends were married, were straight and married, and they were having their kids, and I was spending lots of time with them and their kids and saying, you know, this is what I want also.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Like when you start to see people living living a certain life or parts of their life that you can relate to that you want, that's when you also really know because the desire comes out even more, you know.
Exactly.
I remember seeing my friends having kids and I'm like, "Oh my goodness. Okay, th yeah, no, that's not what I want." Or you know, it's just the opposite, right?
Yeah, I
So,
never thought otherwise. I never said no,
yeah.
I don't want kids. Never. It was just as I just assumed I'm always going to have kids. Never entered my
Mhm.
mind that it wouldn't happen.
Yeah, wow. And so then Dr. Biljan, I remember, because for those of you who are listening or watching and are not from Montreal, Dr. Biljan was a very famous doctor. Like, and I can imagine the lineups outside his door, in Montreal to offer these services. It was very special. So then he told you were pregnant with two.
Yes. And I
Yeah.
just started crying. I was like, I know the night that I was inseminated at his clinic, I was going to a wedding that night. So when I went, I was like bloated from the medication. I brought a change of clothing for the wedding because he would see me like at night. He goes, okay, come. I think it was Sunday night at 7 p.m. That's your appointment, you know, for insemination. And I'm sitting there, and I think I said a little prayer. No, I didn't say a prayer then. I got inseminated that night, February 26th, because I remember. And then I
Yeah.
went to the wedding at the Shar Shemayim, and I remember sitting there saying a prayer in the shul. You know, tonight I was inseminated. You know, Baruch Atah, I hope it takes tonight. So I'll never
Right.
forget the date. Every time it's my friend's anniversary, I send her a little message, happy
Yeah.
anniversary, only because I was inseminated that night and it took.
That's amazing. That's so amazing. Wow. And so what were some of the thoughts and feelings that were going through your mind as you process the fact that not only were you pregnant, but you were also having twins?
Well,
Do you re
the first few months I was nervous because I'd had a miscarriage. So I was very scared and stressed about those first 12 weeks. You know, let me get past those 12 weeks. And then I had to go because of my age. There were more tests that had to be done because I was 39. I remember going for the diabetes test at the hospital, having to drink that liquid. And you're supposed to drink it in 10 minutes. It took me about an hour because it tasted so awful. I went for regular visits because of twins. And I remember at one appointment at the Jewish, because then I was being treated at the Jewish kind of like high risk because of my age. And I remember two of my friends came with me, and I'm lying on the bed, and she's about to give me the procedure for an ultrasound. And I said, I feel dizzy. And I passed out in front of her, in front of the nurse on the bed. It turned out that the babies, one of them was just lying so high up here that he cut off my airways because I was lying on my back. So they flipped me over on my side, and they said to me, okay, from now on, you can't lie on your back, flat on your
Mhm.
back anymore, you know? And eventually I had to take off work because I grew so big. Couldn't really drive anymore because I couldn't fit behind the wheel.
Wow.
And
And you're small. Like tell
yeah,
like how tall are you?
five
You're
feet. I'm 5 feet.
5 feet. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I remember like we were just saying, I remember seeing you at a takeout place and it was like you were at that time where you were just about ready to go, you know?
there
So
was
I
no
couldn't
clothes.
believe
I had
it.
nothing to wear, nothing fit. I was wearing men's extra large pajamas from Old Navy and borrowing clothes from
Yeah.
my father, you know, because I put anything on and the buttons would split. There was
Yeah.
nothing fit me.
And I remember saying, how, like, oh my God, she's doing this and she's doing this alone. And, so, you know, were you scared? Were you, like, I can't imagine what you're excited, but scared. And how did you get yourself ready, you know?
I I think I was more nervous than scared. I knew that I had a
Mhm.
lot of experience now because one of my friends did have twins before me. So I spent a lot of time changing diapers. I didn't know
Okay.
anything about changing diapers and feeding and warming the milk and the powder. I learned everything that I had to learn from a friend of mine that had had twins. I spent all my time there. I outsourced my diaper bag that came from Israel, needed to, because I'm very organized and resourceful. So I remember getting my diaper bag in order. I remember reading books. I joined various groups, with different
Mhm.
parents.
Okay.
I forget what those meetings were, but just I think they were mandatory or not. As a new parent, you have to go to all these different groups, support groups for moms and learning how to do this and that. And I made a lot of friends in the waiting room of doc because Dr. Schinder was my doctor. She was a cousin of mine, and it wasn't the same doctor when I had the miscarriage. After the miscarriage, I switched over to Dr. Schinder, and
Hmm.
I made friends in the waiting room that I'm still friends with now,
Yeah, that's so
years
nice.
later. So yes, I was nervous, but I had excellent friends to support me. I had an amazing support system.
Yeah, I was gonna say, first of all, you work in community, and so you're a very community person. And you do have a lot of friends and you do have a lot of support. So I could see how that, you are someone that surrounds yourself with good people and you build your relationships with people. Like that's a gift. Like not everybody is like that, but you are very much like that. I could see
And you
that.
have
Yeah.
you have to have that, especially if you're going to do it on your own. You need that support. I
Yeah.
was working at the Jewish rehab, like in Chamonix, when I got pregnant, and
Hmm.
it was a new job. I just started working I think on a Thursday or something like that, and I got pregnant like within the first week. And
Mm.
after like 2 months, or 3 months, I wasn't allowed to work anymore. I remember going to my boss and saying, by the way, I'm pregnant. And she thought maybe I was pregnant when she hired me. And I said, no, you hired me like on a Friday and I got pregnant like the week after because I felt bad.
Yeah, for sure.
But the support that I had was incredible. And my mother's reaction when I first told her I was pregnant with twins, I have it on YouTube. I can send it to you. I videotaped it. I mean, she was freaking out because as it was, okay, she supported me having one child. But when I told her I was having two, she almost fainted.
Yeah.
She's like, what are you going to do with two?
Yeah. You asked yourself the same question when you were in
Exactly.
Bill Jan's office. And
Exactly.
and so when you gave birth to your twins, they're both boy twins,
Yes.
yeah. Um, who was around to help you?
Well, I had three friends. Well, the night before I gave birth, I went for dinner to Pizzioli. I was craving that garlic the night before. So my friends took me for dinner. And the next morning, my other close friend, Susan, picked me up at 6 a.m. She was driving a truck at the time. I could barely get in there, like to climb up into the seat. She brought me to the hospital. Then two other close friends showed up and my parents. The nurse, the emergency nurse, is a cousin of mine as well, Dr. Joyce. Well, not she's a nurse, Joyce Ross. So I had a wonderful support at the hospital, and Joyce was able to get me a private room as well. And then I was wheeled away into that operating room, and I can still feel it. I can still envision exactly, what happened. I said goodbye to my parents. I said goodbye to my two of my friends. Actually came in. They were allowed in the operating room and stayed with me the whole time. They stood behind the curtain, like near my head, because I had a scheduled C-section.
Wow, that's amazing. That's crazy.
They
I
held the
still,
babies before me. My friend Susan held Dean before me.
wow, that's nice. That's beautiful. And so, after you gave birth, you brought your kids home, and, was it everything you thought it would be? Did you have to, how did you make things happen? And did you just let things happen? How was it for you? You
Well, I
know?
have a quick story before I went home, though.
Okay, tell me.
Because when you have a C-section, well, I had a C-section, so I had to stay in the hospital for five days.
Okay.
So, like a lot of people, you give birth and someone, maybe your mother, your husband, sleeps in the operating room, maybe sleeps in your room with you, the first night to help you. But I didn't have anyone sleep in my room with me. And so that night, the nurse said, okay, you're going to stay in the room and you're going to keep both babies with you in the hospital room overnight by yourself. They're going to stay in the bassinet. And so I'm freaking out because I could hardly sit up. I had a C-section. So my mother says, look, she can't do it by herself tonight. Can you keep the babies tonight, in the room? Um, in the nursery, let her get a good night's sleep. So the nurses said, okay, we'll do that. But the second night, the nurse says, okay, like now you need to take them in the room. And I said, well, I still can't really sit up. Give me one. I'll take one. I don't know which one stayed with me that night, but one stayed with me. And the third night, the nurse says, okay, now you need both in your room. And again, I was alone. So, she put them in the bassinet next to my bed. And in the first 3 days, the nurse came and taught me how to breastfeed, right? So you have a specialist. So during the night, obviously they started crying and they needed to be fed or changed. So I was able to reach out and take a baby and breastfeed and change the diaper. But then I wasn't able to reach over and put them back
Mhm.
in the bassinet without one of them falling off the bed or something,
Right.
because I'm lying there with two babies and I'm freaking out because the beds are pretty high and I don't know what to do. So there's the call button. So I called the nurse and said, please help me. I can't get the babies back into the bassinet. So that was just one little incident at the hospital. But once I was home, I guess I look back and it was full adrenaline, for X amount of years, just running on adrenaline. And two other friends of mine gave birth the same week that I did. So I started spending all my time, the three of us, the three moms together, and they each had boys. And we spent almost every waking hour together. It was fall, and we would go to parks, we would go to each other's homes, we would go to music classes, we would go to movies for mummies, we would feed off each other, we would give each other tips and advice, which really helped a lot.
Yeah, that sounds like it. Yeah, so I hear a lot of like you really need you have another gift that other people might not have. It's asking for help, like you can't do it alone and you're asking for help, which is very special, because not everybody can do that. And again, you have this like community around you. So
Yes,
that's
you can't
wonderful.
you can't do it alone. And
Yeah.
friends were over all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
not even
So
friends, like
nice.
even acquaintances, like someone that I'm still acquaintances with now, not a close friend. She came over every single day. She just came over and said, "Hi, what help? What can I do for you today? Or do you need to go out and I'll watch the babies for you today? You need to
Yeah.
take some fresh air." And I had a nanny for a little bit, for a few months. My parents paid for a nanny and a night nurse. And then I said, I don't want the nanny anymore. She was like,
Yeah.
I lived in a two-bedroom and it was just too much in my face. And
Hmm.
and I said, I asked her to leave and I said, I can do this by myself.
Yeah.
I had them, I'm raising them. I don't want the nanny to raise them. They're mine. And,
Wow.
and thank you for your help. But after 5 months, I said, I'm going to do this. I got it.
Yeah. Wow. And another thing I'm hearing also is that you've also given people an opportunity to help you, like to give back, and be altruistic and helpful and caring. And that's also special, right?
Yeah,
Like it also gives people the chance because being able to ask for help and then being able to receive it and giving people an opportunity to do that. I think it's also very how can I say this? It's courageous and it gives people an opportunity so they're able to have good feelings about it. It's like it's a lot of positive experiences here,
absolutely.
that
Just
that
like,
you're sharing with people.
because like I just told you that two women I know just are having babies on their own. One I think is in her, if I understand correctly, she's in her late 40s. She just had a little boy a few weeks ago, and I haven't seen her yet, but we were in touch. And when I found out she was pregnant, I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy you're having, like, good for you. You're having this baby by yourself on your own. And
Yeah.
another girl at work too, she's younger, in her 20s. She said, you know what, I'm going to have a baby on my own. And I see that she's pregnant. So I think it's amazing. I think we have a huge support system. Everyone's like cheering us on.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember when we initially talked, the first conversation we had, I do remember you telling me so much about the community that you have and how you live your life now, like with your kids and who's around. And so can you talk a little bit about that as well? Like how they grew up and who their
Sure,
family is and
sure. And I never told my kids I was gay until like they were 12 years old, because I wasn't dating anyone. So they just, they went to a Jewish elementary school, and, the moms, I think the other parents knew that I was gay, but or that there was no husband or that I was single. And so the kids would come home from school and say, "Oh, Dean and Mason don't have a daddy." And so the parents would reach out to me and say, "Oh, what should I tell my kids? Is there anything special that you want me to tell them?" Because they're asking why, Dina, they don't have a daddy. So just from elementary school, these people that I didn't even know were kind enough to reach out to me and email me, about the conversations that they were going to have with their kids of why Dina Mason, hadn't had no dad. And they embraced us like the parent body of a Kifa school. There's only two grades. I separated my kids all through school in different classes. They make different friends, but every parent there was such a support to me. It was incredible. Like there was no negativity at all. It was like, here's an exceptional person, and she has twins, and the kids are great, and let's embrace them. And
yeah.
like it's been like that forever. Like it doesn't matter whether it was in sports, in high school, in elementary school, at synagogue. There was never an issue. They were just embraced, and they have an amazing group of friends, my boys, and they're friends with their friends' parents. Even they have a connection with them, and I have a connection now with their friends' parents too. It's wonderful. It's like a big, beautiful world.
Shari Ann, that's because of you. That's because of your spirit. That's because of like who you are and what you taught them and how you live your life like every day, right? So I acknowledge you for that because, and that's what I remember feeling when I was listening to you the first time we spoke. It was very like full of life, full of people, full of support, full of friends and normal and,
Yeah,
supportive and easy, easy. I
I
mean, not easy, but
no, I know.
you definitely make it easier for yourself.
I
Yeah.
think so too. It hasn't been stressful. It hasn't been a stressful ride. And I say that the kids growing up, they were very easy babies. Like they weren't colicky, they weren't screaming, crying. I'd give them a kiss and I'd say, "Okay, go to bed," and that was it. They would just do what I say. They just go to bed. There was no issues. I didn't even need a sus to tell them to be quiet because they were always good boys and they were quiet. And I think it's a twin thing because they would get it as they got older, where they'd get into my car, into their car seats or their booster, and they would know, like, they always want to sit behind mommy, right? Because that's the place to be. But they internally knew that, oh, Mason had mommy in the morning when we got into the car. Now it's Dean's turn to sit behind mommy. They did it on their own. It was incredible. There was no arguing. Where am I sitting? What am I doing? They said, okay, we're going to take turns. So they automatically took turns in mostly everything that they did. And I think that's a twin thing.
I don't know. I think it's a you thing.
Or maybe,
But
no,
but maybe other twin parents will tell me, yes, it's a
I
twin
don't
thing.
know.
Ariane, I think it's a you thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a you thing. It's just inherent in you. And so what's happening now? How's everything going?
Well, now it's great. Well, now they're in university. They're at
Mm,
McGill. They're in the same program. They've had the same friends. They've always had the same friends. They just won the pickleball champion, intramural champion last week at McGill. They came in first place. Then the next day they came in first place for the basketball intramural. They're on the team. Um, they've had full scholarships through LCC, almost a full ride. And my son Dean was head boy in the last year. They've been honor roll students throughout high school, throughout Dawson, and right now they're studying for their final exams.
amazing.
And they're involved
Wow.
in every type of sport except hockey. I put them
Okay.
in every sport. I didn't want hockey. I figure it's going to be expensive. And from what
Right.
I understood from other hockey parents, once you're in hockey, you don't have time for anything else. So I said, let's do everything else but hockey.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. That makes
And it was,
sense, right?
yeah, it was expensive, but like it didn't matter whether it was flag football or basketball, tennis, swim team, skiing lessons. I
Yeah.
managed.
Yeah.
I worked
That's
hard and I managed to do it.
yeah, amazing. Wow. And so, I like, what is your message here today? What would you like people to think about, to know about?
Well, I think you have to go after your dreams. You have to go after whatever it is you want. And you can't take no for an answer. Like just the idea of LCC, it costs $20,000 to go to that school. And people would say, oh, they wouldn't even attempt to register their kids because they can't afford it. So they would go to public school. But I said, you know what? I'm going to try. I'm going to fill out all the necessary papers, for scholarships, for bursaries. And luckily for me, whether it was elementary school, whether it was high school, whether it was sending them to Israel, Journey of Cope, sleepaway camp, like I didn't take no for an answer. I applied and I wasn't embarrassed. I wasn't
Yeah.
embarrassed to apply for financial assistance for them. And so I would do the application, and the good news would come, like they got accepted to LCC, Selwyn House, like full scholarship as well. And so I would say, don't take no for an answer. Don't think that you can't achieve your dreams just because it might cost X amount of dollars, or it's almost impossible, because it's not. If you don't try, you're never going to know. So don't take
Right.
no for an answer.
Right.
And just
Yeah.
go ahead and do it. I mean, yes, so someone might say, no, I'm sorry, you don't apply for financial aid. I'm sorry about that, but at least you've tried. And
Right.
even now
Yeah.
at McGill, they applied. It's not even financial need, but people don't know, but you can apply to McGill for scholarships and bursaries. And sure enough, the government gave them aid for that as well.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that their whole life, trying to find, ways to help them to get me through to where they are today.
Like, I almost want to ask you, like, what's been your biggest challenge?
Oh, I,
That's a surprise question. Not
yeah,
that we
because,
planned all of my questions, but in asking you, I feel like you don't look at things like that. You just look at, you look at having your kid, like you look at what you dream of and what you want and the life that you want to create, and then you just go and you do it. That's
yeah,
how I
because
see it.
I try not to stress about it, because if I had to stress over money, I work full time. I've At some point I had 5 jobs, to make ends meet. Like I love my job, but it doesn't pay a lot. So I was outsourcing and trying to find different ways to make money. I host international students. I place international students with people's homes. I was driving kids home from school, to and from school. I was working for a lady as an admin assistant in her house. I was doing all sorts of things so that I could pay for my kids. And if I actually had to think about money, I would be up all night. Like I wouldn't be sleeping. So I don't know what the greatest challenge, or anything that really stresses me. I just don't really think about it. I just go, go, go.
Yeah. Wow.
Otherwise I wouldn't sleep at night. I'd be a basket
Yeah.
case, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah,
Mm.
really. That's amazing.
And there's so many
And
opportunities too, like for them.
yeah. And you brought, two beautiful boys into this world. So congratulations.
Thank you. And this summer they're going to Israel. They're volunteering this summer in Israel.
That's great. That's
And they volunteer
beautiful.
a lot. They volunteer. I've encouraged them to volunteer. So they've volunteered at the Friendship Circle, and they volunteer at McGill. They're like I said, they're going to Israel to volunteer. So
Yeah.
wherever I find opportunities, I say to them, "Oh, why don't you try this?" And sometimes they'll say, "Yeah, I'm interested," or "No, I'm not." And they work part time as well. So they're great.
Yeah.
They're good. They're good boys, and they give back a lot to me.
Amazing. That's great. So it worked out for you in the end, that's for sure. Yeah.
It
Good.
did. It did. Yeah. So I would basically tell anyone, just go after your dreams, whatever it is you want. Just do it. Don't
Mm-hmm.
don't don't say I can't do it, or it's not possible, or there's a roadblock ahead. Forget it. You'll never know unless you try.
Mm-hmm. And is there anything in your life right now that you're thinking, okay, I want this and I'm gonna get this? Anything that you would like to share? like you had your kids and you do that and now they're 20 and they're getting older. Is there anything else or you feel like your
Um,
life is complete or
well,
you
I'm
have
turning
any?
60. I'm gonna
Yeah, that's amazing.
think I have to do a nice vacation this summer, right? Something
Okay.
different.
Okay, there you go.
So I'm thinking of what it is that I want to do, to celebrate my 60th. I haven't come to that idea yet, but it's pretty soon. It's in July, so I have to
That's
think
right.
about that soon.
Okay, great. Well,
Travel.
you want to travel. Yeah. And I have no doubt you'll figure it out.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Did I miss anything? Is there anything else you want to add?
Um, no, no, my whole room, I'm looking here and I have all these pictures of my kids since they're babies in my room. I have all these different picture frames and they just fulfill my life. I mean, every night, like right now, my kids are living downtown. My mother's in Florida for the winter. So they're living at her condo while they go to school. But, one son texts me every night, good night, I love you.
Oh,
He's really sweet. He's 20 years old, good night, I love
yeah,
you. It's
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah,
The other
good.
son, not so much. He's a little bit quieter.
Okay,
I
well,
have
it
to,
can't be perfect.
no, I know. I know.
Yeah.
I have to nudge him a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you definitely bring light into this world, and you brought two others that do as well. You brought them up amazing, and with with your community together, you make every day better, better than it could be, better than it was, from the day
Thank
before.
you.
So that's what I get from you for sure. So
Thank you. I
thank you.
appreciate you reaching out to me.
Good. Thank you so much. And so thank you, everyone. Here's another amazing story of go after what you want, no matter what the challenge is. Um, and this is what we want to talk about on People, Their Passion and Purpose, because everyone's got a story of challenge, of resilience, of a dream that they have. Of look, Shari Ann, you wanted kids ever since you were little, and there were many things in your way, and you did it, and you got there. And your purpose was to bring another person into this life, and you got to bring two, and you got to share all your Shari Ann-ness,
Two for the price of one. That's what I
two for the
say.
price of one. So thanks again, everyone, for being here with us on People, Their Passion and Purpose. Can't wait to see you again soon, and take care.
Thank you,
Bye.
Charlene.
Thank you very much.